Sister Eleanor had always been told that obedience was the highest virtue. From the moment she entered the convent at 18, she learned that her purpose was to serve God in silence and humility. The stone walls of St. Mary's Monastery enclosed a world untouched by the temptations of modern life. It was a life of prayer, sacrifice, and devotion. But as the years passed, Eleanor felt an unease growing within her, a whispering doubt that refused to be silenced by hymns or penance. It began with a letter. A young woman, desperate and abandoned, had written to the convent asking for help. She was pregnant, shunned by her family, and had nowhere to turn. Eleanor read the letter late at night by candlelight, her hands trembling. She brought it to Mother Superior the next morning, expecting a discussion on how they could assist the girl. But Mother Superior's lips pressed into a thin line as she shook her head. "We cannot involve ourselves in matters beyond these walls," she said, her voice firm. "Our prayers will suffice." Eleanor nodded, but inside, something cracked. Was faith only about prayer? Could they not extend their hands to help? The image of the girl, frightened and alone, haunted her thoughts. She knew the answer the convent expected her to accept, but something within her rebelled. That night, she slipped the letter into her robes and resolved to meet the girl in secret. She found Margaret, a trembling figure wrapped in a thin shawl, by the edge of the village. The girl's eyes widened with disbelief as Eleanor approached, her nun's habit marking her as someone who should not be there. "You came," Margaret whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. Eleanor nodded, pressing a warm hand to the girl's shoulder. "Come with me," she said. Over the following weeks, Eleanor found a way to provide for Margaret without alerting the other sisters. She smuggled food and warm clothing, using the small allowance she was given for personal needs. But secrecy was a fragile thing. One evening, as she slipped into the chapel after meeting Margaret, she found Mother Superior waiting. Her gaze was sharp, unreadable. "You have been sneaking out," Mother Superior said quietly, "lying to your sisters." Eleanor clenched her fists. "I was helping someone who needed it. Our duty is to the Lord, not to the world's sins." "Is it a sin to show kindness?" Eleanor's voice shook. "To act instead of watching suffering from afar?" Mother Superior sighed. "You must confess and repent. This disobedience will ruin you." Eleanor wanted to obey. She had spent her life in the convent, believing it to be the only path to righteousness. But for the first time, she saw another path, one that led beyond these walls, into the world where faith was not just whispered in prayers but acted upon with love. That night she made her choice. She gathered what little she had and fled the convent, the cold night air biting her skin as she ran through the gates. The town was asleep, unaware of the quiet rebellion unfolding. She found Margaret, and together, they disappeared into the shadows, into an uncertain future. Word of Eleanor's defiance spread quickly. Some called her a heretic, a fallen sister. Others whispered admiration, saying she had done what many feared to do. She had chosen compassion over rules. As the years passed, Eleanor built a refuge for women like Margaret, a place where the abandoned found shelter, where faith was not a prison but a guiding light. The convent remained standing, its bells tolling with the same hymns that had once comforted Eleanor. But she had found her own hymn, one written in acts of kindness, in love beyond doctrine. Her rebellion had not been against God. It had been against fear, against silence, against the idea that faith meant watching suffering without lifting a hand. And in that, she had found her true calling. Eleanor's refuge grew into something greater than she ever imagined. More women arrived, some escaping abusive homes, others cast out for reasons society refused to forgive. She took them in, offering them shelter, food, and most importantly, dignity. The small house she started with became a network of safe havens. Despite the risks, Eleanor continued her work, driven by the belief that love and action defined faith, not the rigid boundaries imposed by those who feared change. But with her growing influence came danger. The church, angered by her defiance, sought to silence her. Letters arrived from high-ranking officials demanding that she return, warning that excommunication loomed if she did not repent. Still, she refused. The convent's doors were closed to her, but she had found something greater than the sanctuary of stone walls. She had found purpose. One evening, as she sat by the fire with the women she had saved, an unexpected knock echoed through the small house. When she opened the door, she found a young nun standing there, her habit dusted with travel. "I heard what you did," the girl whispered, her voice filled with something like awe. "I want to help." Eleanor stepped aside, smiling softly. Her rebellion had not ended. It had only just begun. As more women arrived at Eleanor's refuge, her mission expanded beyond just shelter. She began organizing lessons, teaching them skills that would allow them to rebuild their lives. Some learned to sew and craft, others to read and write. The small house grew into a community, each woman finding a purpose beyond survival. They were no longer just victims of circumstance. They were reclaiming their dignity, forging paths beyond what society had dictated for them. News of Eleanor's work continued to spread, reaching not only the church but also the village and beyond. Some saw her as a saint, others as a dangerous radical. She ignored the whispers and the warnings, focusing only on the women before her. But one night, the danger became real. A group of men, sent by those who wanted her silenced, stormed the refuge. They demanded that she cease her work, that she repent and return to the life she had abandoned. Eleanor stood firm. "I have found my calling," she said, her voice unwavering. "If this is sin, then let me be judged by God, not by fear." The men hesitated, unsure of how to respond to her defiance. One of them, a young man who had once been part of the village church, stepped forward. "She is doing what we should have done long ago," he said quietly, "helping those who need it." Slowly, the group dispersed, but Eleanor knew the battle was far from over. As time passed, more supporters joined her cause. Some were nuns who, like her, had begun questioning the rigid traditions that prioritized obedience over compassion. Others were villagers who had seen the good she was doing. Her refuge expanded, becoming a sanctuary not just for women but for anyone in need. And though the church never forgave her, though she was never allowed to return to the convent she once called home, Eleanor did not waver. She had found a new home, a place where faith was lived, not just spoken. And in the end, she had no regrets.